Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Another week, another edition of the show. This week, I have Chandler from the amazing project that he's doing called COVE. I will let him describe exactly where he thinks he falls into the genre world of labeling and algorithms as we get through this. But Chandler is actually going to be one of our very first artists here ever, too, that only has an EP out. But if you know anything about me, when I find music that I'm passionate about, whether it's 1 song, 2 songs, 3 songs, 4 songs, 5 songs, doesn't fucking matter. These 4 songs that I heard stood out. I couldn't stop listening to them. So it was in my best interest to have Chandler come on, talk about, and find out about his life and music, just like everybody else, so we can all get together and find out how much we have in common. So after that long-winded introduction, welcome to the show, Chandler.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
It's an absolute pleasure. So, I mean, let's dive in real quick. And how did your, solo project, The Forest Cove, come to fruition?
Yeah, I went through a breakup last year, and I, in the span of like a few months, wrote tons and tons and tons of demos, and I was just like, all right, I'm gonna do this and finally release music. I'd been playing guitar since I was 14, 15 years old. Uh, Took me a couple months because I didn't buy a tuner, and I remember looking, before YouTube was really popular, everybody on Ultimate Guitar was like, okay, you put your finger on the fifth fret of this string and then you match the tone. And I had a good ear, so I'm like, oh, I could do that. But the problem with that is that you still need the low E to be in tune. So basically everything was in tune to the wrong E. So essentially my guitar was out of tune for months. And I was so frustrated because I just didn't think that like real people were using like tuners. To me, that was something that like I used in middle school band. Like, oh, guitarists don't use tuners; they just use their ear. And uh, so it took me an extra 2 months to actually start playing guitar. Uh, and then once I got that going, uh, I picked up an acoustic guitar, started doing songwriting, uh, was in bands with friends, but all the people I was surrounded with for most of my life, they did everything by themselves. And I think I had that in the back of my mind for forever. I was like, well, I remember trying to teach myself production and mixing and all these things, and I was never satisfied with the results. And finally, just last year, I was like, I need to find a way to get this music out. There's nothing wrong. It's still just as authentic if I'm not the person doing every single thing. It just so happened that it's just a lot of people I knew, it's like they're doing every single instrument. They're the ones mixing it, mastering it. And I eventually was just like, you know what? I'm not going to let any excuse stand in my way. I got to drop some music. And that's what I've been trying to do.
Well, I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you figured it out because I got fucking 4 banger songs that I get to share with people. So
Appreciate it.
now, I mean, you brought up middle school. You brought up when you started playing guitar, but when in your life did music really start to hit you first? You and I were talking prior to this, so I know you may be prepared for a lot of these questions since you've listened to some episodes. But you know, the pivotal moment when you're a kid is when you hear something that like just clicks with you. Do you have that?
Yeah, and I know you've had a few previous people say Blink. Feels like everybody says Blink, but there was this really corny, I think 2001, 2002 movie called Clock Stoppers. I have this in my like Apple Music for Artists little bio, and that was the first, uh, basically it's like a Disney-esque kind of movie I saw in theaters, and this guy has a watch that can stop time, and he grabs like his girlfriend's hand and then like pauses time, and as they're crossing the street first date plays, and I was just like captivated. I went home. I think I went on probably MySpace at the time, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And uh that's the first song band I remember really getting into. I had cousins who would burn me CDs, and it had all the popular rock at the time, like Linkin Park, which I loved, and Foo Fighters, but it didn't like quite scratch the itch that I was looking for. And I was really into sports as a kid, and there's only so many times you can hear Thunderstruck by AC/DC and Enter Sandman by Metallica. You're just like, okay, there's nothing wrong with those bands. I think they're great, but I, there's something about in the era that I grew up as a kid playing sports and going to arenas, it felt like they had the same 5 or 6 songs that they would just play over
Same
and over and over.
soundtracks. Yep.
Yeah, and you just eventually that became what was popular, and you were like, all right, I want to go in the complete opposite direction of that. And so that's, I guess, how I found Blink. But the actually is would this be related? I guess the first time I guess I remember playing music, or is it just about getting into music? You would
Just
say.
getting into music, and it starts that that rabbit hole, like when you find something that connects with you and you start going down this rabbit hole and you find Blink. What does it lead to next? Like where do you go to search out? I mean, because back at that time, I mean, you really had like fucking Hot Topic and you know FYE to go try and find and search out new music. So where would that rabbit hole lead you to next after hearing Blink?
Yeah, I had a. Would it be unethical to mention LimeWire?
No.
uh, I know I'm an independent artist. I would love people to buy my music on Bandcamp, and I'm talking about LimeWire here. So, I, if the FBI is listening, this is all facetious. It didn't actually happen, but basically, a lot of people. I remember getting just horrible quality versions of music. Like looking back now, like I had this old SanDisk MP3 player. I remember being so excited because it probably could hold like 100 songs. And I didn't really understand LimeWire when I was super young, but I remember I had friends who did, and their computers were all sorts of jacked up. I mean, they probably had dozens and dozens of viruses. But I remember they were just giving me all sorts of pop punk. I would go on MySpace. I would see what their top music was that they had on their page, and I think that was a lot of it. Was going to friends' houses. They would burn me CDs that they got from MP3s, probably off of LimeWire, and that just put me down a huge rabbit hole. I think of pop punk, a lot of drive-through bands at the time. I remember getting into, and that's what eventually led me to picking up a guitar.
Now, did you have a band that you found that you thought was your own that you were excited to share with your friends that you thought they never heard of?
Uh, I did a little bit later in life, not when I was super young, but I think maybe middle school, high school. There's this band from New York that it's very much from that drive-through era of like hard pop punk with like post-hardcore influences. They're from New York. They're called Just Surrender, and I was I'm just like a sucker for bands that have two vocalists, uh, and I thought they did it very well. They have a couple really good records, and still to this day, I don't think most of my friends probably even know much about that band. They never blew up, but
No, short
and
lived, but yeah.
yeah, and I don't, and I would have loved to see them, but I think mostly they'll play shows every once in a while in New York. And it's a bit hard to get out to New York from here, but I would say that band probably still to today. Most of my friends don't even know who they are.
Yeah, and I would venture to say there's it wouldn't even be your friends. I'd say there's millions of people who have zero clue who they are. I mean, it's one of those things that sits in our CD case in my store that still never moves out of that, emo hardcore section that I have. That's just like, do you guys? It's trying me too, trying to educate people. Like, can I pick it for you? Can I pick something you haven't heard that you should be buying and taking home with you? But
Yeah, yeah,
no, it's a great call for fucking Just Surrender. Wow, good
yeah.
on you.
Yeah, they. I mean, when when you think about a lot of bands from that era, I think what really separated a lot of pop punk bands from just another pop punk band was like the two vocalists, the vocal harmonies, and anybody who had outside influences outside of maybe just like generic filler pop punk. Like if they had some post-hardcore edge, and I think that's exactly what Just Surrender had. And to me, they had this edge, and I really was like, man, they should be so much bigger.
Yeah, well, there was that time in that mid early 2000s, the early mid aughts, that it was almost like me growing up in the 80s and 90s. It was almost like the same thing that happened with grunge, where there were labels and independent labels and just running out to sign every fucking person that could sound somewhat like something else, and then never paying attention or giving it the time that it actually needed to get out to people. And then the bands were just left languishing, and it was up to us, to find it, which is really tough. And nowadays it's still, the algorithm that fucking supposedly tells you what you're supposed to be listening to. I equate it to it all it is K Rock and Z100 and MTV again, just telling you what you're supposed to be listening to and letting the finer things that maybe are better left for us to try to find ourselves. And, that's hard. And then I feel bad for artists that, that they're just left out there. They put out this beautiful creation and they have no idea what's going on with it.
Yeah, and the specifically Just Surrender, like I I guess again this goes back to LimeWire, but did this ever happen to you where I don't know if somehow maybe like an early demo or something would leak online, And that would be the only version of the song that I knew for maybe like 10, 15 years until I went on Spotify and heard the actual final mix.
Hmm.
And it sounded so different. And, I'll still hold on to the original demo. And I'm like, wow, this sounds so much better. It's just so much more raw. And that happened to me with just such a handful of bands from the early aughts where, uh, depending on the source of where you got the song, I mean, there's handful and handful of songs like that where I prefer the version. I think the version that is actually out that the label put out is actually like objectively worse than the demo that I have that no one's probably ever going to hear. I guess it's probably just it's no longer on the internet anymore and they're only going to hear the polished sound, I guess, that maybe the label wanted to drop.
Yeah, and when it comes to that digital stuff, like again, me being older but I was growing up going to punk shows and like, when I say punk shows, like punk bands that like Green Day, seeing them in small venues and like uh Screeching like Lookout Records and Fat Records and like all these like bands that you were getting a 7-inch from them because they didn't have a full album and you were getting these raw songs and then all of a sudden these bands occasionally would get signed and then they'd go into the studio and you'd be like, oh my god, you're so excited, there's going to be this full album this is gonna be great, and the same songs that are on that 7-inch sound completely different. And that's kind of why I'm a physical media person. That's why I own a record store, because I still have those set and those are the versions of the songs that I remember. Those are my versions of the songs. Yeah, they went in and they polished them up and got all this money behind them, but that's not the way it was supposed to be heard.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, that's how my friends and I would pass around our own demos. And that's really what made it feel like our music was like, oh, we're the only ones listening to this right now.
Yeah, and I think that's also the ownership and trying to get back to that of people, music's so easy nowadays, right? To find and like you don't really invest anything into it. The casual listener or they just don't people don't invest of going and buying an album. And now that's yours and now it belongs to you. And now these songs belong to you and you're going to have them for however long you're going to have that album until it breaks, it scratches, it anything. But
Hmm.
the ownership is now gone. And I think that's where the biggest disservice in today's music listening world has gone, because you can just, Alexa skip, instead of, oh shit, I bought this album and now I have to spend, all this time investing into these songs that maybe I don't necessarily like, but I don't have enough money to go buy another album for a short period of time. So now I'm going to learn to like it. I'm going to learn to love it. And we're in a very good time and a very bad time. It's just making an effort. And I think the effort has kind of gone to the wayside.
Yeah, I know Mark, Tom, and Travis show from Blink 182 is something that everybody had access to, but I remember a friend burned me that CD and I actually heard that before I heard Enema of the State, which everybody almost unanimously says is one of the definitive records of the last couple decades. And I remember actually a couple songs I like more on Enema itself, but I remember hearing Mark, Tom, and Travis show on the live record and how everything was played up tempo and maybe there were even mistakes in there. And I just grew attached to that version. And still to this day, I prefer that over most of the songs, the up tempo live version.
Well, mistakes make it real, right? And that's I always kind of turn back to like one of the greatest albums I think ever recorded was Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. And it was recorded with everyone in the same room, playing it live, and there's mistakes throughout the entire place. And it's a fucking perfect album.
I had I had a mentor in GNR is like her favorite band. She's probably seen them 20 times. And she and I went down this big rabbit hole about how the like the I guess if you want to call it hair metal and pop punk, like how the way it's almost the era of fans, like there's really a lot of crossover that you can compare, not in how the music sounded, but just like the culture around that and about how it did a complete flip where it was like it was really big, and then for the longest time everybody thought it was lame and it sucked, and then it turned back around again and now it's, it's cool again. We both thought some big parallels there between pop punk and hair metal.
Yeah, everything has its ebbs and flows, right? Like the ocean always recedes, but those waves always come crashing back. And just like anything in life, all of a sudden baggy clothes are coming back into, you know, which is good for me because I get to start wearing all the larger clothes that no longer fit me after losing weight, and I can get back to doing my t-shirt runs on Instagram for the store. But I mean, there's all these things that kind of change, and especially with music, where things will go away for a little while, and they don't necessarily go away. They're just no longer in the forefront. Like people are still making that music. Like people are still creating that sound. It's just it's it's not popular, so it doesn't fall into a place somewhere. Like you're not going to hear about it. You're not going to see that person on the Today Show in the morning. You're more likely to see fucking Corey Feldman fucking performing. But the music's always there, and there's someone always creating that music because there's always fans of it, right? So like hair metal never went away. It was just, yeah, it just wasn't in the forefront and it wasn't in your face anymore. Same thing with punk. Punk had this huge rise and then it kind of went away. And then now it's same thing with emo. I don't, apparently we're on the seventh wave of emo right now. I'm still on the first, so I have no fucking idea what's going on when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I think social media has really distorted also what it's hard for me to tell if I mean this observation has been made before, but I remember pop punk not being cool. And then maybe 5, 10 years ago, I mean, now everything is called pop punk and emo. I mean, there's no way to discern the two now. I guess people just use both of those terms really loosely. But I remember 20 years ago, it was like not cool to like a lot of that music. And now it seems like everybody likes it. And, it's a very gatekeeper mindset to have like, oh, you weren't really into this band 20 years ago. But it is really hard to tell because of social media. Like, did really this many people like this, or is it just, in vogue to like this stuff now?
Yeah. It's definitely, I look at it as, and getting to see it on a daily basis of, you know, people who come into the record store and ask for a certain thing where I'm just like, really? Like, I know it's not right to, but really you're asking for that? It doesn't make sense to me. And then, guy that works for me will be like, dude, there was an Instagram thing like 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it probably is healthier that, there's less gatekeeping and the mindset is shifting, but that is still something that you really, it, like when you were talking about attachment earlier, I mean, when it felt like it was just you and your group of friends who liked this one thing, it just gave it so much more meaning.
Yeah. And then outsiders came in and stole it from us.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier 14 is kind of when you got into guitar. Was that like your very first instrument?
No, I played trombone in band. I remember wanting to play drums, but everybody played drums and no one wanted to play trombone. And I hated it. It was heavy. The case was huge. It was awkward. I didn't think the sound that it produced was very attractive. I was second chair trombone for a couple years, and then I stopped. And I remember my parents, for one Christmas, they got me a keyboard, but I wasn't really that into keyboard. Like they kind of jumped the gun, and I never really asked for it. I was still very grateful, but my mom was really into classic rock, and her dad, my grandpa, had perfect pitch. He was an amazing piano player, and maybe she just kind of saw that for me as well, but I just never took an interest to it. And so I remember it took me years and years of asking for a guitar because she was like, well, are you actually going to play this? Or is it going to be like the piano? I'm like, no, 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 no. Like this, I like this music. I need a guitar. And,
Yeah, well, I didn't ask for the fucking piano.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It sounds so spoiled, just like, oh, you got a keyboard. But, it was one of those like Casio
Yeah.
ones. They picked it up from Costco. It was pretty cheap, but I remember it could play songs for you, and that was what I did the most. Is I listened to it would play Elton John's. What song does he have from The Lion King? It would play
Oh,
that.
can you feel the love tonight?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could play that for me. So that
Sorry if I
that
just lost street cred, people, that I got that really fast. But
hey, Lion King and Tarzan on CDs, the Tarzan soundtrack was one of the I had a 6 CD changer in my car in high school, and that was one of the CDs that I had. My mom left it in the car and I just never took it out. So always Phil Collins, man, he really
Phil's
underrated.
the best. Yeah, Phil's the best.
But yeah. So I would say, did not like trombone, was not very into keyboard, and guitar just it just spoke to me.
Well, so ska and new wave were out, and you were just like right to guitar licks.
Yeah, I remember when I was picking up guitar, the biggest band in our local scene was my friend's band, who was a ska band. And I would go to shows to like support him, but that wasn't really my thing. I remember uh, I never got super into ska, but it was at that time. This was there was a second. I don't know how many waves. You lose track. I mean, you said we're on the seventh wave of emo, but this was a good 7, 8 years after the peak of like Goldfinger, No Doubt, and everything. And
Yeah.
they had a big. They were very big in our local scene. That was the first show I remember going to.
Well, that was your very first show ever.
Uh, you know what? No, my first show ever was Linkin Park on their Minutes to Midnight tour. So that would be like late '07, early '08, and it was at the Staples Center. We were about 20 rows back, left side of the stage, and who plays Welcome Home? Coheed and Cambria opened for Linkin Park, and I remember the guy he was playing a double guitar and while singing, and his hair was down to like his chest, and I was like, how is he even singing the guitar? And I was so amazed. And I remember when Chester hit his long scream for Give Up, and it was very incredible. But that was the first show. I guess my first local show, though, I had a friend's band, and they were opening for before Set Your Goals was the headliner, who I was really into at the time. And this was when Story So Far only had one record. And so they actually were opening for my friend's band. I think it was Under Soil and Dirt or whatever it was called, their first record. And I hadn't even heard of them then, but I remember going to that show. There's a tiny venue in the San Fernando Valley that's closed about 15 years ago called Cobalt Cafe. Probably was, I don't know if it was up to fire code, because it was one of those venues that probably was like should have been like a 150 cap, but they stuffed in way more people than 150 into that small room. But it was a blast. I wish That's why when you reached out to me and then I started hearing you talk more about your venue, I think that's exactly what we need more of. And uh, you know, there's there's just fewer and fewer of those small venues around the country now, and we need more and more of those.
Well, it was something that I myself missed, was getting to see, you know, cool shows in small spaces where you can at some point just be like, I remember seeing them there. When the next time you go see them, you're seeing them play in, 1,000, 1,200 cap room, as
Hmm.
opposed to a 100 cap room. And giving, younger bands or even older artists who may have been forgotten about, that opportunity to have new people hear them and have that intimacy where you feel like you're part of the show. And I think that's where we lose a lot nowadays. There's some awesome venues out here in Jersey. Crossroads, one of my favorite, that's like you feel like you're part of the show instead of just watching the show.
Hmm. Yeah, and I still have a bunch of the flyers from that show, just these little pocket flyers, just as like souvenirs. And small venues like that, I mean, that's how you create a fan for life, and you get that uh, that sentimental attachment to a band because you're like, wow, I was really like I saw them on their first or second tour, and not a lot of people can say that.
Yeah, and watching like, one of my favorite things, and it's what brings a smile to my face. Like we just had a show last Friday, sold out, kind of like a prog metal rock show. It was fucking awesome, and there was two kids there. Like, and when I say kids, there's a 14 and 16-year-old, right? And the show's over, and they wanna. I mean, you can literally. The stage is only, I want to say, 8 inches off the ground. So like you can go on this, but they're like running up to everybody, like asking for the picks and the drumsticks and the set list, and oh my god, like having the conversations. And I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted.
Hmm.
That's that's what made this worth it, is watching that, because that's the next generation that's going to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember I was in the front of when Set Your Goals came on at the Cobalt Cafe, and I remember afterwards the guitarist gave me his pick, said "Set Your Goals" on it. I had that in my wallet for the longest time, just like that little souvenir like that. And you're totally right. It's what sets up the next generation.
Now, from going and seeing this stuff and you picking up a guitar and learning how to play guitar, I mean, did you rush out searching for other people creating music that you could create with, or was it like a selfish thing to yourself?
It was pretty selfish because I mean, every musician ever has imposter syndrome, but I remember feeling because I started around 14, 15, and all the musical people in my life, like they had been playing guitar since they were 5, and I just never felt like I was good enough to be on their level. And so I always kind of just kept it to myself because I was like, oh, I'm not worthy of that. Like, like these guys are in actual bands and playing, shows, and like this is just a me thing. And so uh and that's something that honestly I feel like as a musician you carry that with you maybe forever, that chip on your shoulder, that imposter syndrome. It can be a good thing and a bad thing.
Now, when you did start to play with other people, and what was the name of your very first band you were ever in?
I I promise that well, the first, I don't think we had a name because we just had one song. It was me and a couple other friends. This is really lame, but I remembered the lyrics because they stuck in my head. So I might have prepared a little too hard for this, but I would love to share these terrible lyrics with you if you want to hear.
Yeah, no, bring them
All
on.
right, I don't remember the name of the band. We had a song called "School Sucks," and the hook was "School sucks, especially when you're rejected. School sucks. I got this one important question. I spent my life preparing for this day, and now that I've been rejected, I don't know what to say." And I think we were 12 or 13 years old. We had that one song. It was it was awful, but
Wow. I'm
I
so glad I have great editing software.
yeah,
No.
yeah, it was terrible. And then the I had a group of friends who I've known, some since kindergarten, some since middle school, and we would all jam together, mostly just play cover songs. And I do remember the name of that. It's probably the worst name of all time. We called ourselves Generation Flannel because during this time, plaid and flannels, if you remember in the mid 2000s, late 2000s, plaid and flannels was very in. So that's what we called ourselves, and we really only played for our family and girlfriends, but we played a lot, and it was fun. And I think I remember initially singing and realizing that I could reach high notes because Rock Band was really popular at the
Yeah.
time, and nobody wanted to sing. They're just like, they were all excellent at Guitar Hero, and I was awful at it. So they were just like, "Oh, you sing." And I picked up Boston had a couple songs on Rock Band, and so I I guess I could thank Boston and Rock Band for teaching me how to hit high notes at a young age.
I love that because I'm a huge Boston fan. So,
Okay. Yeah,
so,
I think is is it Delp? Brad Delp?
yeah,
Is that his? Yeah,
yeah,
I think he's one of the most talented rock vocalists of all time.
yeah. There, I think someone said to me once that they were accurate. accurately rated, and I said no, I think they were extremely underrated. But they're like, no, they're accurately rated. I'm like, nah, I don't think so. I think they were still very underrated because there was so much music at that time too. Like, and then when you look at album sales and just their covers too, like my favorite thing is to show people who are coming in to buy a Boston record, and I tell them every Boston record just flip it upside down, and it's a guitar. The
Mm.
spaceships are guitars. The stars are guitars. Like everything about it is just when you're looking at it the way you're looking at it, yeah, it just looks like some cool space stuff. And then when you flip it upside down, it's all guitars.
Yeah. I did not know that, but
Yeah,
they are the perfect example of a band that can just transport you to a certain feeling, like a place.
more than a feeling, actually.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. It's a fucking we're a comedy show as well. Um, so performing like in this cover band that you're in, what was your first like true performance in front of strangers? Do you remember where and when it was?
Uh yeah, I think it wasn't with the band. It was mostly by myself. I think all my first performances were like at birthday parties. I remember playing Battle of the Bands. Uh I I still have the video. I think my friends wanted to see it the other day, and it is so embarrassing because I remember being so nervous. Uh, it was a duet that I wrote, acoustic guitars, and I remember it was really hard to watch. I was just like, oh God, like it was brutal. But I remember the feeling getting off stage, and I was just like exhilarated. I was like, wow, that is like, the greatest thing ever. Like I want to do that again and again.
Yeah, you go from pissing and wanting to puke yourself to when it's finally over, like, oh my God, that was awesome. It's like Will Ferrell in Old School. What just happened? I blacked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always give music credit, I think, for giving me a lot of confidence because I remember uh having stage fright as a kid, not wanting to go on stage, but when you realize that uh you can play music and not everybody can play music, it definitely gives you some confidence.
Now the hard question. Might be a little easier, but because it has to go by songs that you currently released, but no one's ever heard you before. Got to make your first impression. What song are you playing for 'em of yours?
So it sounds like most people, if I'm to glean anything from what people on my page are telling me or people who've listened to my music, it seems like everybody likes the song Liar the most. I've been stuck in bed with no sleep, got a heartache, I just can't be. I tried to make her day, and she'd ruin my week. Another messed up game of hide and go seek. I was being sentimental for all the wrong reasons. 'Cause she throw me over I like the song "Point of View" the most.
And I like
It's
Misunderstood.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's so funny how you just have it's so hard to have like a pulse on what people enjoy about your music.
Yeah.
I it like cuz I like commercially, like if there was a manager over my shoulder now, he'd be like, "Say Liar, that has the most streams." Like, "Come on." But honestly, my favorite is Point of View, so I'll stick with that.
Okay. See, but you said your favorite's Point of View. So your favorite's Point of View, but song you play for someone is Liar. So
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But I don't know if Liar, because I was talking to you before the show about how I already have so many demos that I want to go through, and I'm just so excited to release. I just have so much music that I want to release. And again, if there was like a label over my shoulder, they would be like, why aren't you writing more songs like Liar? Like, obviously, people like that more, but a lot of the demos that I have coming up probably aren't as much like that song. I mean, it is what it is, but I have a lot of, uh, you were talking about genre earlier,
Yeah.
and I, I think on my bio, I think I say like SoCal Pop Punk with a splash
So
of emo.
emo, yeah.
Yeah. And I, I don't know. I mean,
Which it all means the same thing nowadays. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too hard on the other generation for just calling everything emo and pop punk. I mean, it is what it is. I think it's good that more people have access to this kind of music. But when people start, like, I don't know, but I
well,
think Blink
I think the
182 is objectively not emo music.
but so there's the one term, right? And it's pop because it was, in the 80s it was pop music, and it was Madonna and, Tiffany and Debbie Gibson, and it was considered pop. Same thing, King of Pop, fucking Michael Jackson. My definition of the word pop is accessible. So pop just means accessible. So pop punk just means it's accessible punk to your grandmother can almost listen to it. You know what I mean? And that's where I think sometimes, like, I, I'll throw the term pop in front of something just because I'm saying that it's accessible to a wide variety of people, as opposed to just saying it's punk and it's only accessible to people who listen to punk.
Hmm. Okay. I've seen Chart Metric calls me emo. I don't whatever. And then Spotify categorizes me with a bunch of I don't see emo pop to me doesn't really sound like if you're combining pop punk and emo, wouldn't you just call it emo punk? Like why would you call it pop emo?
Yeah,
Right?
well, it's pop emo because it's more accessible emo music.
Yeah.
Because emo can be, and that's the thing too. Like, I grew up in this weird era where it was always called post-hardcore, and then all of a sudden this emo word came out because there were more singers that were a little more emotive than let's say, even though fucking Ian MacKaye of Fugazi and Minor Threat was very emotive, but it was post-hardcore. And then all of a sudden this emo word came out, and everybody's like, what the fuck is that? And it was, oh, well, the whiny, vocals. I'm like, they're not whiny. They just sound better. Like, they sound better than Ian MacKaye's vocals, but it's the same style of music. And then you had your screamo, where you had one guy who had a beautiful voice and then a guitarist who just screaming in the background. Or, you had, there's so many definitions to so many different fucking subcultures, subgenres. I mean, for crying out loud, go on Bandcamp and you can create your own genre.
Oh, maybe I'll do
Yeah,
that.
because there's 9,000 different things you can click. And what's really cool is, and I spend a lot of time on Bandcamp searching for music and finding music that hits me, like such as yours. And it's because I hit like this wide variety of different styles of music to combine them together to lead me somewhere. Like, hey, here's this, lead me to something that sounds like all five of these genres I just picked. And honestly, a majority of the time, it does a great job at doing that.
Hmm. I've done that too with have you heard of Unchartify?
I've heard of it. I haven't used it yet.
Okay. Yeah, you just log in with your Spotify account, and it's kind of interesting. It gives you a more in-depth look than like if you I think
I
that's a
kind of
cool.
rail against Spotify if you can't tell because we're not on it. So
I mean, I was telling you before the show. I mean, it's like I ever since I started paying attention to monthly listeners and uh like how many people are actually listening to the music, I've just written so much less music and had so much less fun, which sounds a little entitled because it's like, oh, boo-hoo, people are listening to your music. I mean, but the most fun I have with music is when I just finished a demo that like only I've heard, and then I'll in my mind be like, okay, I need to run to the grocery store, get food later today. I'm going to be in the car for 10 minutes. I'll listen to it then. And then I'll just listen to it like on the way there and back. And like that to me is it's like pure happiness.
nice. I can't listen to anything I ever record once it's done. You know, it's well, it's just like creation. You know, when you're creating music, I deal with the same things musically as I do with the podcast. The minute I'm done doing production, I'm done. I never want to hear it again. I just want to fucking be able to get it out there so people,
oh, yeah.
it's just it's that stuff where too, like when people release music, one of my questions that I ask, like somebody finishes their album, like how do you feel
Mm.
now that something you've worked on for a year and a half and you've listened to the songs probably 500 times a piece and now you have to go play them, like how are you feeling?
Well, that's why I clarify though. The first time, I definitely would. I'm not doing. It's like the first time I have to run an errand when I finish the demo. I'm certainly not like the day the song drops on Spotify. I'll listen to it 10 times. By then, I'm like, all right, I've already heard the song 1,000 times. But
I mean, well, you should because you get listens off it. So like you're driving your own numbers at that point.
yeah. I guess you're right.
Yeah. As I had a band on recently. I don't think the episode came out, but like, yeah, people were really surprised last year when they looked at my Spotify Warped and the number one band I was listening to was my own band. I'm like, wow, man. Like maybe don't share that with people.
Yeah, I can't say I do the same. I don't share that.
Yeah.
No. That's pretty funny. Yeah,
Yeah, we got a good kick out of it because I was just like, wait, what?
yeah.
Like if my podcast that I listened to the most was my own, I'd be like, oh, there's a problem. I'm very self-indulgent.
I was telling my friend who I like to send demos to just to get feedback from him. I was looking at Spotify and seeing similar artists, and two of my top similar artists were my two friends' bands. And I was so excited. I was like, dude, no way. And he's like, you do realize it's because it's just me, you, and our other friend, and we just all listen to each other's music, right? And I was like, oh. Like
Yeah.
I thought everybody was listening to us when really Spotify is just like, oh, these three guys just listen to each other's music all the time.
Yeah, we're gonna put them together.
Yeah, yeah. When really he's like progressive metal, it's not very similar. So, uh, I don't need to keep tying everything back to Spotify because, like you said, it's not your favorite thing in the world.
No, it's not. So, what were you listening to the day you got your driver's license and picked up your first friend?
Probably around that time. Uh, I think Homesick by Day to Remember just came out, so we're probably listening to that. I did for the first time in my life buy a car that wasn't like a hand-me-down a few years ago, and I had a playlist set up for that. And I think the first song I listened to, Dude Ranch by Blink-182. I think I put on like Josie. I
Wow,
think when I got into the car.
nice. An underrated Blink album.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Blink hipsters who will say like, oh, that's actually their best album, which I wouldn't agree with, but I do think it's a very good album.
Yeah, mine's still Cheshire Cat because I remember the day I got that and I was like, what is this?
Uh,
Really, really weird. And
yeah.
I mean, my CD is still like, this is how old my CD still just says Blink on it. They didn't have the 182 yet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
So,
a collectible.
yeah. I think it was Grass Records. I think that's what it was on. Grass Records.
Okay. Yeah, the producer of that record, I think his name was Mark, or not Cheshire Cat, but of Dude Ranch, was Mark Trambino. And out in LA, he has a vegan donut shop, and all the donuts are named, and all the items are like puns of bands. So they
Mm.
have a Bacon 182, that's bacon bits on, and they have a Sunday that's Taking Back Sunday, spelled like Sunday. And so if you're ever in LA and you like donuts and pop punk and emo music, highly recommend Donut Friend, I
All
think is what
right.
it's called.
Well, there's a great brewery around here that actually made a beer for our store that all their beers are named after songs. So like
That that's awesome.
and like post hardcore and metal and emo songs. So it's really cool.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
Uh, So at this point, I mean, Blink keeps having this pop up, but in your life, the band that you like constantly listen to that you know gets categorized as favorite band sometimes, but I go with band that never lets you down, that you always find yourself going back to, and it's kind of always going to be a part of your life. Who would you say that is?
The easy answer would be Blink. I mean, I could
Yeah,
talk for 2 hours about Blink. But just for, I do this. This would also be, I guess, my a band that a lot of people. I'm not particularly religious, but I love Reliant K. I think their songwriting, their harmonizing, I think their Birds in the Beach side and I think those two records I think are fantastic. There's there's something about the songwriting that I really connect with. They also have a really good Christmas record. Again, I'm not particularly religious, and that's not like the part that I connect with. I just strictly think it's
they still
like,
make great music.
yeah, yeah, which um I remember maybe just in my like I was naive, but I remember not realizing like I first connected with the music and then later someone was like, "Oh, they're like a Christian band or whatever." And I was just like, "Oh, whatever." Like I really connect with their music. So,
Yeah, they're a band who's Christian. Like that, it's a lot of like there's one or two songs an album that may have that kind of stuff to it, but like I think that that pigeonholing of, I mean, Evanescence was a Christian rock band.
Under Oath originally, not
Yeah, Under
anymore.
Oath, but I mean, yeah, there were actual pop punk and emo labels that were Christian labels.
Mm. Yeah, wasn't it
Tooth and Nail
yeah,
was,
that's
yeah,
that's what I was yeah,
yeah,
what is that? Hawk Nelson? Is that
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so like I mean there were actual labels that were putting, I mean MXPX was on Tooth and Nail. So
Mm.
it's like there were these labels that were had these Christian undertones, but it wasn't necessarily because they were writing, songs about Jesus all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I just love I'm blanking on the lead singer's name right now. Uh, but I just love his songwriting. I think it's fantastic.
All right. You remember the last song you cried to?
Uh, oh, that's tough. Uh, I don't remember. I don't think I cried to it, but I remember getting close. I remember getting emotional listening to Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie. Um,
That, that,
yeah,
that can do it.
yeah, yeah. Uh, probably. I don't think it would be accurate to say Death Cab is underrated. I would think maybe enough people probably appreciate them, but I don't hear them talked about as much as I think they deserve to be talked about.
I think they get about enough.
We're probably just not listening to the same sources then. But yeah, I think they're yeah, I think that's a great song. It's always those like 8, 9 minute long building songs. Like there's this duet by Silverstein called The End. I
Hmm.
remember listening to that a lot in high school. Uh, Probably every guy my age back in high school would listen to If It Means a Lot to You after a breakup by A Day to Remember. Um, and then uh, now I think it's a song I'll put on the background all the time, but The War on Drugs, they have a 9, 10 minute long song, minute long song called Thinking of a Place. And that's just for me and that whole record, just perfect for just like put it like relaxing. You could throw it in the background when you need to like do chores or something. Uh, I think music like that, building 7, 8, 9 minute long songs. Like Explosions in the Sky, Your
Yeah.
Hand in Mine, probably something like that.
All right. Now, based on all the music we've been talking about, what do you listen to and get tons of enjoyment out of that people be really surprised, basically based on everything we're talking about?
It would have been Reliant K, so I guess I kind of blew it there by mentioning them a little early.
Nah,
Uh,
because it's got the pop punk, it's got the sound. So
yeah, I so I guess that one's a maybe. I don't think they really qualify. Um, I'm trying to look here to see. Let me see what I've listened to lately. I guess I listen to so much heavier stuff as when I was younger, and I feel like as I get older, I've become a little bit. You just become softened a little bit. I don't know if that's been your experience, but I just listen to less and less heavy music as I've become a little bit older. Do you share that?
no, I don't, only because I have so many different people that I'm around now, having the store and running vinyl nights, that I just listen to so much different stuff. The only music that I don't fuck with is pop country. I don't understand it. I've tried. People are like, no, and then like I know the kids are really into it, and I think it's very funny when people come into the store and like, where's your country section? I go, oh, if you walk around the back of the building, there's a dumpster back there. Like,
There's a couple country songs that I'm cool with, like I think Paisley's a very talented guitarist. I like that song "Remind Me" with Carrie Underwood, but
I'm not
um,
saying there's not talented guitarists. Like Keith
oh
Urban's
yeah,
a talented guitarist, good songwriter, but I ain't listening to it.
you know what? I think a good one probably. Uh, I guess people would be surprised. A lot of the a lot of the music. I think this is also there was like a mismatch in the music that I would sing at like open mic nights, talent shows, battle the bands. Like I would sing uh mid-tempo pop songs, and but the music I liked listening to was totally different from what I enjoyed playing on guitar, I guess you could say. Like if I was playing a talent show, you would sing like Break Even by The Script, or something where you can really like show off your chops, I guess you could say, or uh something by like Sam Smith or Louis Capaldi where you can just like really belt. So I guess that would probably be the biggest surprise. Would be I think my voice is actually probably better suited for that stuff, but I'm I don't plan on releasing like any music like that. So uh, that was something I remember running up against a lot in my 20s, was feeling like, oh, you feel so self-conscious about your voice and you feel like your voice doesn't fit, because it's very hard to describe this, but maybe people know what I'm saying. When there's a certain voice in pop punk or in easycore that you just know when you hear it, you're like, oh, I know what genre this is. Like you could tell
Yeah.
within the
Oh
first
yeah.
couple seconds. And I just never had that voice and never felt comfortable singing like that. So I think that held me back for a long time, because I was like, oh, like I just don't have that. So I would say that would probably be the biggest surprise
Yeah, I
people
mean, all you
hear
got to
is
do is have a little bit of whine to your voice and a hint of an English accent.
yeah. So Tom DeLonge,
Yeah,
there was I remember somebody did I don't know what you call people who study languages. Somebody did or they did an analysis of his
a
accent.
linguist.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Uh, a linguist did an analysis of Tom DeLonge's voice, and I think they said his accent sounded like he was like Canadian or French Canadian or something, which is just hilarious because they're from San Diego. But
yeah,
and then that spawned a generation of people sounding like that, like you're alluding to. Thank you, linguists. Thank you for
yes,
that word.
yeah. No worries. No, I'm here to not only talk to you about music, but to educate our listeners on many things. 5 minutes left to live. World's going to end. Meteor hurling into the earth. Got to listen to one song and one song only. What are you listening to?
Peace of Mind by Boston. Easy.
Hmm, well, for you, yeah. Not for many people here.
No. I'm a big believer in. I mean, if I could see the meteor, it's like, all right, What Pete, I don't know. Peace of Mind also, I mean, I'm sure not a lot of people at this very moment are Boston's not nearly as popular as they once were, but that song just on like such a spiritual level, I feel like would resonate a lot with people in their teens and 20s right now if they knew that song, I would think.
Mm. All right. We kind of, people weren't privy to this, but your house is unfortunately been taken over by flames. Every living thing is out safe and sound. You have an opportunity to go in and grab music one thing attached to music. What are you grabbing?
Yeah, we were talking before the show. There were fires about 8 years ago, and my family had to go through this exact situation. I remember my mom tossing her wedding dress in the back of the trunk and a bunch of family photos, and all I grabbed was my laptop and my guitar. I think that was all I took. Thankfully, nothing happened. I mean, we saw the flames, I think, at the top of our street, and everything was okay. But acoustic guitar and a laptop, and I was like, all right, that's all I need.
All right. Yeah, the wedding dress things, I honestly, I don't get it. Especially like my wife and I, we don't have kids. And all it is this big box that I have to move every time I try to get something else. And it's like, what are we really holding on to this for? Like, what is this for? Like, what are we doing with this?
My mom would agree with you because I brought up that story to other family members, and she just denies it. She gets really embarrassed. So sorry, Mom. I think she does not remember that. She blanked it out of her memory. She's like, really? Like, why would I do that? But
Yeah.
the family photos I get.
Yeah, family photos, 100%. But wedding dress, let that fucking bitch burn. You already got your money out of it, right? Like it doesn't go up in value really after the years that it's been sitting in a freeze dried box. But
Yeah, yeah.
it just mine in my attic gets in the way. But
Mm-hmm.
well, we've been here for that magical hour. So before we move on to our final segment, I'd love to give you an opportunity to tell everybody how they can keep up with you and find out what you're doing.
Yeah, so it'd be Forest Cove Music on Instagram is where I'm mainly at. Forest with one R. I remember when making the band name, the only other Forest Coves out there's like a handful of apartment complexes all over the world that I guess have the name Forest Cove. So just if you look up Forest Cove, it should just be me. Don't go to the apartment complexes.
Your Forest Cove Senior Center.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So I was pretty happy. I was like, wow, nobody else took this name. I think there's Forest Cove Plumbing and Apartments. So don't go for those.
All right. Awesome. Well, we are in our weekly 3 segment. 3 things you're listening to right now that you'd like people to check out. You give your 3 for the week, then I give my 3 for the week.
All right, perfect. One I'd have to give would be my mixing mastering engineer, Gabe Wolf, WOLF Wolf. He just dropped a new song, Up in the Air. Think like Minutes to Midnight era Linkin Park combined with Catfish and the Bottlemen and Oasis influences. And he's mixed all the songs on my EP, Misunderstood. And that's Misunderstood, MISS Understood. And he's very talented. If you're into, again, that type of music. Another friend, Jacob Lowing, LAUING, very talented vocalist and screamer. You'll like him if you're into progressive metal, heavy music, and kind of an old forgotten band. There's a mostly mid tempo pop punk band from Central California called Sherwood.
Yep, I know them.
Yeah, a lot of vocal harmonies, like pretty laid back, not really in your face. The record, A Different Light, is very solid. Very just relaxing pop punk. Good stuff.
Nice. Good 3. All right, my 3 for this week. The first one is a band called The Kites. They have an EP out called Postcode. They're British kick-ass indie rock band. Let's go with it. I'm going to use a lot of indie here, and also you'll find the prevailing theme in my 3s this week. The next band is a band called 10 Hands High. They have which drives me crazy. Just combine them all. They have like fucking 90 singles out there. So, but, combine them, put them into an album. I get why you're not doing it, but do it. Last but not least, and they're another British indie rock band. And last but not least is a band called Denver County Council. They have an EP called Many Rooms, Many Doors, and I'll say they're like progressive emo. I mean, I don't fucking know. I don't know what these genres are supposed to be. But again, another amazing British band that's out there from across the pond. But yeah, so my prevailing theme is 3 British bands on my threes this week. And I wasn't even in the UK. I was in Las Vegas. So
What's in Las Vegas?
I just went out there for my wife had a work function, and I had 2 days off of work because we were closed, and I took a trip out there and went record shopping and punk rock museum and did my thing. So,
Oh, I've been meaning to go to that. Was it fun?
yeah, it's good. It's the second time I've been to the museum. It's just cool, especially like that's the scene I grew up in, and getting to see like the old flyers from the old places in New York City, and the flyers of shows that I was actually at are just like that's so much fun to me to see that stuff.
Nice.
But Chandler, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you so much for creating the music that brought us together. That is by far and away extremely important to me. It's not lost on me. It's the reason why I reached out to you to be here. It's because I believe in the music you've already created, so I know I'm going to believe in the music that you're going to keep creating. So thank you so much for creating that specifically for me.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, Shane. And for anybody who goes and checks out my music, thank you in advance. Really appreciate it. Trying to drop a new song every couple months, keep my music fresh in everyone's mind. So hope you enjoy it.
Well, you know what time it is now, everybody. Go out, listen to Forest Cove, and have a great fucking time. Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band, and don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.